Back in March, when our world was upended, the Governing Laws Committee furnished 3 recommended pieces of legislation to be considered by the Grant Council. When the Executive Committee decided in early May to cancel the planned in-person meeting of the Grant Council in June, we had hoped to have an in-person session of this body this weekend. Well, that didn't happen either. In short, it was our hope to save legislative matters for an in-person gathering. Regretfully, that is not in the cards for us. Nonetheless, the proposals from the Governing Laws Committee have been circulated to you several times over the last 7 months, including along with the packet for this meeting earlier this week. We will attempt to adopt these changes here today, first by acclamation, and if so necessary, via the voting tool Election Buddy. Brother Dakota Neff sent each of you a test ballot earlier this week to give you an opportunity to see how it would work. We hope to not have to use that today, but if we do, we will spend the time necessary to ensure everyone who would like to cast a ballot has done so. Brother Rick Lewandowski will serve as our parliamentarian today to keep our proceedings in compliance with Robert's Rules of Order. The proposed changes from the Governing Laws Committee all relate to the statutes of governing laws and therefore can be amended by majority vote of either the Grant Council or Grant Chapter. I would now like to welcome to the virtual podium Chairman of the Governing Laws Committee, Ben Trachtenberg.
Thank you, worthy Grant Proconsul. Brothers, because everyone has seen these proposed legislative changes numerous times, I will move through a high-level overview to simply refresh everyone on the proposals. Go ahead to the next slide. The first proposal is related to the Education and Leadership Board. This proposal would amend the governing laws for the purpose of eliminating the ELB due to the formation of the Sigma Chi Leadership Institute. It would also refer approval of programming decisions to the Executive Committee. At the same time, this proposal would update references to what is now referred to as the Leadership Training Workshop to what we're actually calling it now, the Transformational Leadership Workshop. Next slide, please. On the screen, you'll see the text of the proposed changes. So at the top, you're seeing the removal of the provision that refers to the current LTB and then so on, creating the new things. New text, you'll see for all of these is in the blue text, and the crossed out text in red shows what's being removed from the governing laws. Next slide, please. This is more of the same proposal. All right, let's go ahead to the next one. So the second proposal is related to the Life Loyal program. The proposal would amend the governing laws for the purpose of aligning the Life Loyal SIG program to meet current practices and needs of the organization. Next slide, please. And here you see the text of the proposed changes. Next slide, please. There we go. The third proposal is related to the definition of an active chapter in the governing laws. The proposal would amend the governing laws for the purpose of changing the definition of active chapter to align with current practices of occasionally allowing chapters to operate without recognition from an institution of higher learning. At the same time, it would rectify issues for chapters that are located jointly at multiple institutions of higher learning, of which our chapter at Toronto Ryerson is one example. Next slide, please, will show the text. So again, the red is crossed out as text being removed. The blue text is the new text that contains the new definition of active chapter. All right, next slide, please. So I want to thank all the other members of the Governing Laws Committee. For brevity's sake, I won't list them now, but these proposals involved a lot of work from the entire committee, and these brothers are all volunteers, of course. So thank you, brothers. That concludes the report of the Governing Laws Committee.
Okay, thank you, Brother Trachtenberg, and to the entire Governing Laws Committee for your diligent work on these proposals. As I mentioned before, we would like to adopt these legislative changes via acclamation. Can I have a motion to approve the packet of legislative changes proposed by the Governing Laws Committee?
Worthy Grand Proconsul, I move to adopt the 3 proposals presented by the Governing Laws Committee.
And I second.
Okay, the motion has been moved by Carter Ray and seconded by Ryan Temby. I will now pause to allow anyone who would like to comment, ask a question, object, or otherwise contribute, to do so via the raise hand feature in the toolbar on your device so we can call on you. As a reminder, speaking privileges are restricted to members of the Grand Council only. We'll give it a minute if anybody would like to do so. Mike, are you seeing any activity?
For the Grand Pro Council, I am not seeing any raised hands or questions being asked.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no questions or comments, I will declare the motion as carried by acclamation. Thank you, Brother Trachtenberg. Okay, let's move on. In plain English, the members of the Sigma Chi Corporation are the members of the Grand Council. The laws governing incorporation of business entities require an annual meeting of said corporation. The Sigma Chi governing laws include the following statement. There shall be a corporation, not for profit, to be known as the Sigma Chi Corporation, which shall be subject to the enactments of the Grand Chapter. The members of the Sigma Chi Corporation shall be members of the Executive Committee, the several Grand Officers, and the several past Grand Consuls. The directors shall be members of the Executive Committee, and the officers shall be the Chairman, Vice Chairman, a President, and Secretary and Treasurer. Brothers, I will now temporarily place the meeting of Grand Council into recess and call to order the meeting of the Sigma Chi Corporation. To lead us in this meeting of the Sigma Chi Corporation, I will call upon the Chairman of the Corporation, Steve Schuyler.
Thank you, Tim. Our first order of business is the roll call. I would entertain a motion to dispense with the calling of the roll and declaring of quorum since there has already been completed earlier today. Is there such a motion?
I so move, worthy Grand Council.
And I second.
We have a motion from Carter Ray and a second from Ryan Temby. Any objections? Carries by acclamation. Moving on, we will now hear the reading of the minutes of the previous meeting, and the chair will entertain a motion to approve those minutes. And unless, of course, there is a motion to dispense with the reading of those minutes and approve them accordingly. Brother Ray?
I move to dispense with the reading of and for the approval of the minutes of the last meeting of the Sigma Chi Corporation held on the 27th day of June, 2019 in Salt Lake City, Utah.
And I second.
We have a motion from Carter Ray and a second from Ryan Temby. Any objections? Carries by acclamation. Moving on. Next on the agenda is the nomination of the board of directors and officers of the Sigma Chi Corporation. Since the governing laws require that the directors be those members of the executive committee and the officers of the corporation are typically those members whose names and positions appear on the screen, perhaps I might entertain a motion to elect the members of the fraternity's executive committee to the Sigma Chi Corporation board of directors and those individuals whose names appear on the screens to their respective officer positions in the corporation. Is there such a motion?
Worthy Grand Council, I nominate as the members of the Board of Directors of the Sigma Chi Corporation, those members elected and serving on the Executive Committee of the Sigma Chi Fraternity, and further move to elect that board as nominated.
Thank you, Brother Jones. Brother Quiner. Do I have a second?
Second.
Brother Tenby has seconded. Brothers, we have a motion from Bob Jones and a second by Ryan Temby. Any objections? Carries by acclamation. Moving on. The next order of business is to affirm and ratify the acts and deeds of the fraternity during the past year. Do we have a motion?
Worthy
Brother
Grand
Ray.
Council.
Yeah.
Worthy Grand Council, I move that the acts and deeds of the Sigma Chi Fraternity be affirmed and ratified by the Sigma Chi Corporation.
Thank you, Brother Ray. Brother Tenby.
And I second.
We have a motion by Carter Ray and a second by Ryan Temby. Any objections? Carries by acclamation. Moving on. Is there any old business? Seeing none, we will move on to new business. Is there any further new business? Seeing none, I now declare the annual meeting of the Sigma Chi Corporation adjourned and reconvene the meeting of the Grand Council. Thank you, brothers, for your expedient and diligent work in dispensing with the business of the Sigma Chi Corporation. Brother Sanderson, back to you.